With the NFL trade deadline passing yesterday, we got a ton of news in the AFC East. And, well, let's just call a spade a spade. It's not good for the Miami Dolphins. I'm Nick Roloff. This is Dolphins Today by Chat Sports. And we could actually cross out the Bills and Patriots because, in shocking fashion, those two teams did not make any trades prior to the deadline, but the New York Jets certainly did. They were the headliner of the deadline as they traded away two All-Pro players. It started with cornerback Sauce Gardner being sent to Indianapolis in exchange for two first-round picks and wide receiver Adonai Mitchell. They followed it up just an hour and a half later by trading All-Pro defensive lineman Quinnen Williams to the Dallas Cowboys in exchange for Mazi Smith, a former first-rounder out of Michigan, as well as a second-round pick this year and a first-round pick in 2027. The Jets absolutely tore down their defense, trading away their two best players on the roster in exchange for draft capital over the next two seasons. And if we're going to be honest, I've created some head waves on Dolphins Twitter. I tweeted out immediately after the trades that these two deals for the Jets is bad for the Miami Dolphins. And a lot of people could not comprehend why I did that. I'll try to explain it throughout today's video, but just a quick Spark Notes version before we get into the full thing. The biggest rival for the Miami Dolphins is the New York Jets. They have not won. They are in the same tier as Miami right now in levels of incompetency and ability to build a contending team, yet they just lapped Miami in terms of jump-starting their rebuild by making those two trades. And it's not good for the Fins as they project to be the worst team in the AFC East over the next three potential seasons. And go to my Twitter/X for more on the Miami Dolphins. @Nick_Roloff is my handle. We are 5 followers away from 2,500. Go give me a follow if you want up-to-date Dolphins coverage, thoughts, opinions, highlights, memes, analysis. Over there, go give me a follow. But to really dive in depth on why this is bad for Miami, look at the draft capital the Jets have just in the first two rounds alone over the next two seasons. They have two first-rounders and two second-rounders this April, and then they have three first-rounders and a second-rounder in 2027. That 27 first-rounder from the Cowboys trade for Quinnen Williams is the more favorable one between Green Bay and Dallas, since the Cowboys own both of those selections dating back to the Micah Parsons trade. But you may ask, why is this so bad for Miami? Well, the Jets now have the capability to secure any player they want in the NFL draft. And if we're going to be honest, on the trade market as well, is it smart for the New York Jets to go out and trade for an existing veteran? No, probably not. But the point I'm trying to make is if they want to go target a specific quarterback in the NFL draft, they can with ease because they have the draft capital to move up. They could also move down and create more draft assets to use on their roster. There is no secret the Jets need a lot of young talent, and they will be able to add that through the draft with relative ease. Like, the Colts pick is likely going to be in the 20s. Their own pick is going to be in the top 5. Next year, who knows? The favorable pick between Dallas and the Packers may be in the teens, the Colts could be in the teens, and the Jets could be in the top 10 or teens. The point I'm making, they could draft a ton of elite young talent just this year. They could grab their QB1 of the future if they hold on to the number 1 or number 2 pick and go with either Fernando Mendoza, Ty Simpson, Lenore Sellers, whoever they may choose. Or they could just build out that roster, go with the top edge rusher, Rueben Bain, offensive lineman, and Spencer Fano or Mauigoa, who probably isn't the most likely considering they do have Armand Membu, and they drafted Olufashanu just a year ago as well. But they could go defense with Downs or Mansoor Delane, players that Miami should be targeting. Like, these 8 players for the Dolphins could easily be the pick for the Fins when it's all said and done if they end up picking inside the top 5. One of these 8 players, I would take one of these 8 over the field, if we're going to be honest. But the Jets could snipe who Miami ultimately targets because of all the draft assets they have. And then you look at 2027, which is where it really is scary in my opinion. Do I expect the Jets to be able to turn it around in 1 year with all that draft capital? Absolutely not. But having 3 first-round picks in 2027 and a second-rounder, it scares the living shit out of me. It really does. Like, if they draft the QB1 of the future, there's a real world we live in where the Jets go Fernando Mendoza this year, the number 1 QB1 in the draft, in my opinion, also grew up a Dolphins fan. And then in 2027, they make a play to trade up to get Jeremiah Smith, the number 1 player in the 2027 draft, projected at least as of now, who also is from the South Florida area and grew up a Miami Dolphins fan. Would it not be a kick in the nuts if the Jets, of all teams, had the QB1, wide receiver 1 combo of Mendoza and Jeremiah Smith, 2 players that grew up Dolphins fans? That makes me not want to watch football, let alone be on this earth anymore. The point I'm making, Miami and the Jets are right now in the same category of teams that have some talented young players and veterans that are looking to tear it down, rebuild, and create a winning roster and standard the correct way. Yet the Jets did it in a way that puts them at a way higher chance of doing it successfully with 5 first-round picks over the next 2 years and 3 second-round picks over the next 2 years. It's not good for Miami, man. What say you? Are you concerned about the Jets' ability to build a roster going forward with all this draft capital? Type Y for yes or type N for no. And for the people in the comments section in this video, on our tweets that I've been putting out, that are saying they're the Jets, they'll F it up, they're the Jets, they always F it up. Like, sure, maybe that's the case. Maybe that will happen. But I think you would absolutely have to be the most naive player or person on the internet, in Earth, to not be concerned in the slightest about the Jets just because they're an organization that has effed it up so often. You know who does that a lot too? Us. They could say it the same thing about us, man. We actually had the same exact scenario that is going to play out for the Jets. Literally the same. Look at this. Through 2020 and 2021, we had 3 first-rounders in 2020, 2 second-round picks, and then in 2021, we had 2 seconds and 2 firsts. Practically the same lineup that the Jets are going to have right now. In Miami, they made some good picks, but they also effed it up as well. Like, I think a lot of this could be because of outside factors, swings and misses on trades and free agent signings, because Robert Hunt was a good pick. I think you have to label Austin Jackson and Tua as okay picks, considering they've been with the team for 5+ years and made it to a second contract. Obviously, we know Iggy was a horrible pick. Liam Eichenberg was a horrible pick. But Javon Holland, Jalen Phillips, and Jalen Waddle were all good picks. So, yes, Miami wasn't able to get a playoff win and sustain success building through this unbelievable amount of draft picks they had. But they did draft a lot of young, good talent, which the Jets are going to have the same opportunity. Like, having this many picks in New York doesn't guarantee they will be good. It doesn't mean they will shoot 100% on the picks and ultimately be the next big, great thing in the AFC and AFC East. But it gives them a lot of opportunities. Let's be real. The only thing that matters is drafting the right quarterback. And who knows, if Miami drafted Justin Herbert instead of Tua, maybe everything is completely different. I'm not here to play that game nor have that conversation, as it seems to be had every single day on Twitter for the rest of existence. But if the Jets are able to find their QB1 of the future and they make the right pick and then have all of this other draft capital to build around him, yeah, I'm going to put Miami in the doghouse of the AFC East as they trail now the potential Jets, Drake May and the Patriots, and Josh Allen and the Bills. Does not look good for the future of Miami unless they somehow nail the QB pick. More coming here in a second. But this episode is brought to you by Prize Picks. The football season continues to roll on. And with the weather changing, the only thing that never changes is the feeling of being right. Keep the season rolling on Prize Picks by getting $50 instantly in lineups when you play your first $5. So simple to play. Just pick more or less on at least 2 player stats. If you get your picks right, you could cash in. How you play is up to you. You want the flexibility? Choose Flex Play. You were going to get paid the most? Well, guess what? You can do the Power Play. No matter your play, Prize Picks is a great way to put your takes to the test. And I'm doing that for Thursday Night Football. More than Bo Nix completions, more than Ashton Genty receiving yards, and more than Brock Bowers receptions. That's my 3-player entry. Download the Prize Picks app today. Use code CLNS to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. That's code CLNS to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. Prize Picks. It's good to be right. The question now remains for Miami, and we'll shift our conversation away from the Jets and the AFC East to what is next for Miami, because the Dolphins obviously trade Jalen Phillips away, kept Bradley Chubb, Minka Fitzpatrick, and all the other veterans. But there is an open roster spot on the 53-man roster due to Jalen Phillips' departure. Well, we'll start here. Miami added a cornerback to the practice squad. They announced this 20 minutes after the trade deadline, which is, if we're going to be honest, just kind of elite trolling by the Miami Dolphins. They signed corner Clarence Lewis to the P squad. Now, we're not going to go in depth about Clarence Lewis on this video, but we are going to talk about a move that could be coming for the Miami Dolphins, and that is at the edge department. I expect Miami to sign an edge to the 53-man roster over the next 48 hours before this Sunday's matchup against the Buffalo Bills, and if you had to project who it would be, I would expect it to be Quentin Bell, who was on the 53-man roster last year, is on the practice squad for Miami currently, and has experience in this Dolphins system and scheme. With the departure of Jalen Phillips, Miami's edge room looks pretty bleak. Chop Robinson, who's dealing with a head injury, and we don't even know if he's going to play this week against Buffalo, is your starting edge. Well, you've got Bradley Chubb, Matthew Judon, and Cameron Good flanking Chop Robinson right now. But over the past 2 seasons, ever since they brought Anthony Weaver in to be this coordinator, the Miami Dolphins have always had 5 edge rushers on the active 53-man roster. Now, they might make one inactive on Sundays, but they ultimately like keeping 5 on the 53. So there is a chance that Quentin Bell gets this call up from the practice squad to the active roster before this upcoming game against Buffalo. And I would expect Miami to add an edge rusher in some type of way. And when the Dolphins do sign an edge rusher to the 53-man roster, we will have you covered and break it down on a video. So subscribe today for up-to-date Dolphins content. We're on the road to 78K subs. Join us today. Now, if you wanted to take a look at potential other edge candidates, there really isn't any veteran free agents that I would kick the tires on. But if you want to poach someone from an opposing team's practice squad, there are some interesting names out there. Now, I do still think Quentin Bell will be the one, but William Bradley King, who spent the preseason with Miami, he's on the 49ers practice squad. Mohamed Kamara, former 5th-round pick from 2 years ago, is on the Buccaneers practice squad, obviously played in Miami last year. You've got former day 2 pick Isaiah Foskey on the Bengals practice squad. This year's 4th or 5th round pick from LSU, Braden Swinson on the Patriots practice squad. And then 2 interesting players in Camion Rucker from the Ravens and Gabriel Murphy. We obviously know his other brother, Grayson Murphy, who is currently on the Vikings practice squad. I think Braden Swinson's an intriguing option. The Patriots just stole John Saunders Jr. from the Dolphins practice squad to their active roster. Wouldn't hate repaying the favor by grabbing a 5th-round pick from this year's draft in Braden Swinson, who looked solid at LSU but didn't have that impactful of a preseason. The point is, Miami should add an edge rusher, and they are likely going to add an edge rusher. So we're just taking a look at some names that it could ultimately be. And when the Dolphins do sign someone to the 53-man roster, we will have you covered not only on the channel, but on my social media as well, as we do for any piece of Miami Dolphins news. So go give me a follow right now at Nick_Roloff.